Silent Heist. How South Africa's most silent bank was pulled off without a trace. I'm telling you, man, this guy's
On the morning of Tuesday, April 22nd, 2025, workers at the First National Bank on Victoria Street in Germiston, South Africa,
holy
came back
shit.
from a long Easter weekend expecting a normal day, but what they found instead left them in shock. The vault had been hit. A large amount of cash and valuables was gone, and yet there was no sign of a break-in. The doors and windows were untouched. Nothing looked out of place, but the money had vanished. This raised some serious questions. How do you rob a modern bank vault without making a sound? How do you get past motion detectors, alarms, and security cameras? And most of all,
Chat, if South Africans did this, I'm giving them a handout. I don't care. Fuck, man. Fuck the government. They stealing from us. They have to steal that money. I'm joking. I'm joking. I'm sorry. Don't cancel me. I'm just starting. But wow. Because most of the time, heists in South Africa, bro, it's always gun violence. These guys didn't do anything. I heard about this story like 3 months ago or 2 months ago. Wow.
how do you vanish so completely that even the police can't find a single clue? This is the story of the most silent bank heist in South Africa, and how a group of ghosts pulled it off without leaving a trace. First National Bank wasn't just
Chat, you see, bro, these guys are gonna, bro, the thumbnail, first of all, is crazy. What if you putting that guy on the thumbnail, they might go catch him thinking he's one of them. Stop doing that. Like, stop.
any bank. It was one of the most secure banks in South Africa. The FNB logo stood for safety and trust. People believed it couldn't be broken into, and they had good reason to believe that. Cameras watched every corner. Staff worked behind bulletproof glass. You couldn't just walk into restricted areas. You needed a fingerprint and a special key card. And deep inside the building, behind thick walls of steel and concrete, was the vault, the heart of it all. This wasn't just a safe, it was the heart of the building. Engineered to survive explosions, drills, and time itself,
Gemstone.
its door locked on a strict schedule, beyond even the bank manager's reach. Inside were the bank's ATM reserves and something even more valuable, rows of safe deposit boxes. Small, unassuming, but priceless. Heirlooms, stashed cash, rare coins, deeds, wills, things people trusted the bank to protect. Things that, if taken, would be nearly impossible to trace. But while the vault was ready for a direct assault, the ghost crew had no interest in making a scene. They had found the bank's weakness, not in its technology, but in its surroundings. Next door stood a closed-down Nedbank branch, vacant, dusty, forgotten. It shared a wall with the FNB but drew no attention. Its doors were locked, its windows ignored. People passed it every day without a second look. It was a ghost building, empty, silent, invisible, and the ghost crew had chosen it for exactly that reason. While FNB focused on guarding its front, it never imagined the threat could come from its side. But the crew had. They saw that wall not as a barrier, but as a doorway. The city was about to be robbed blind, and no one would hear it coming. With their target locked in, the ghost crew moved from watching to doing. This next step was the most important part of the whole plan, figuring out exactly how to pull it off. For them, a crime wasn't about rushing in with or smashing things. It was about control, precision, and patience. Like painting a masterpiece or writing a perfect song, everything had to fit together just right. Their plan had to be solid. Every detail had to work. If one thing went wrong, the whole job could fall apart. So they focused on three key things: watching the bank closely, getting the right tools without being noticed, and building a tunnel straight to the vault. The first step was watching and learning. But they didn't just sit in a car with binoculars. They became part of the street. Some dressed like city workers or land surveyors. They spent weeks quietly studying the bank and everything around it. They watched the guards and timed their patrols to the minute. They tracked how busy the street was and found the quietest times, especially during the upcoming long holiday. They even used tools that looked like regular construction gear to take laser measurements of the area. They went further by digging into public records. They found maps showing the underground pipes and wires around the bank. They had to be sure they wouldn't hit a sewer line, power cable, or internet line while digging. Any mistake could blow their cover. They even looked at studies of the ground beneath them. Was the soil soft and likely to collapse, or was it hard and stable? They needed to know everything. Nothing could be left to chance. The second step was getting the right tools. But they couldn't just walk into a store and buy what they needed. That would raise eyebrows. So they split up the shopping. They bought tools in small pieces from different places all over Gauteng. They got used grinders, strong enough to cut through steel. These machines were loud, so they also found special soundproof blankets, like the ones used in music studios to block the noise. For the high-tech gear, they relied on a member of the crew who was good with electronics. This person quietly ordered signal jammers and frequency scanners online. They used fake names and had the packages sent to random postal boxes.
The only way to order those things is one app, chat. The one app, that app is dangerous. Amazon is dangerous. I realize, bro, Amazon be selling anything. And you can't do that. Nah.
They even studied the exact security systems FNB used. Instead of breaking cameras, which would be too obvious, their plan was smarter. They would loop a video feed of an empty vault, so everything looked normal. As for the alarm systems, they would cut off the power at just the right place, making sure no silent alerts were sent out. It would take a steady hand and perfect timing. The final step was the most impressive: the tunnel. This wasn't just a hole in the ground. It was a carefully designed path that had to be built with precision. It started in the basement of the abandoned Nedbank building, completely hidden from the street. The tunnel would slope downward first, going under the foundations of both buildings, then angle back up, ending right beneath the FNB vault. This exact path helped them avoid tripping any sensors that might be in the bank's structure. But digging a tunnel means moving a lot of dirt. Hauling it out would draw attention. So they came up with a simple but smart solution: don't take it out at all. The old Nedbank building had large unused storage rooms. They planned to spread the dirt out in these empty spaces, cover it with tarps, and make sure nothing looked out of place. From the outside, it would seem like nothing was happening. By the time this planning stage was done, the ghost crew didn't just have a rough idea. They had a full step-by-step plan. They had maps, schedules, a list of tools, and backup plans for every possible problem. This wasn't just about robbing a bank. This was about doing it so perfectly that no one would even know how it happened. They weren't just going to steal money. They were going to leave behind nothing but silence and a mystery that would haunt investigators for years. The crew chose the Easter weekend as the perfect time to strike. Why? Because it was a time of rest and celebration. People had 4 days off and the city was slowing down. The usual noise from factories and construction sites had faded, big trucks were parked away, and the busy streets were now quiet. Families were either going on trips or getting ready to welcome guests at home. This calm atmosphere was exactly what the ghost crew needed. While the rest of the city prepared to relax, they were preparing to go to work. Late that Thursday night, 17th of April, 2025, a plane
17th April.
A plain white panel van drove into a quiet alley behind Victoria Street. It stopped several blocks away from their target. This was on purpose. They didn't want the van to be linked to the bank in any way. 3 people got out, dressed in dark work clothes. They wore simple caps to hide their faces. Each carried a heavy tool bag and moved with quiet confidence. They didn't go to the FNB building. Instead, they headed for the old, forgotten Nedbank building right next to it. Getting inside was done with great care. They didn't break a door or smash a window. During their planning, they had found a weak spot: a rusty steel maintenance hatch on the roof, hidden from view. One member of the team, small and quick, climbed up a drain pipe. He had done this kind of thing before. At the top, he used a hand-powered drill, chosen because it was almost silent. Slowly, he removed the rusted bolts. There was no loud noise, just quiet, steady turning. When the hatch was free, he opened it and lowered a rope. One by one, all 3 climbed inside. The hatch was closed and bolted shut again from the inside. From the outside, the building looked just as empty as before. Inside, the air was thick with dust and the smell of rot. They moved quickly and carefully through the empty offices, heading down into the basement. This is where the real work would begin. First, they set up their workspace. They brought out soundproof blankets and used a staple wrapped in cloth to muffle the noise. to attach the blankets to the walls and ceiling of a small, windowless room in the basement. This room would help trap the sound of their tools. Their goal was a certain spot on the concrete floor, chosen during the planning stage. One of the crew brought out a diamond-tipped core drill. This special tool cuts by grinding, not by hammering, which keeps the noise and shaking to a minimum. He worked slowly and carefully, drilling small holes in the concrete. It was slow, difficult work. The only sounds were the quiet hum of the drill and the soft hiss of water being poured on the drill bit to keep it cool and control the dust. They worked for hours, taking turns. Once the concrete was weak enough, they used a small hydraulic splitter. Its metal arms were placed into the drill holes, and a few slow pumps created strong pressure inside the concrete. It didn't break with a bang. Instead, it cracked from the inside with a deep, quiet groan. They gently lifted the broken piece of floor, revealing the dark soil underneath. They had made their first breakthrough. The tunnel had begun. As the first light of Good Friday came through the dusty upper windows, the crew was already a meter deep. They didn't carry the dirt outside. Instead, they shoveled it into strong canvas bags and carried it to a far corner of the basement. There, they spread it out in a thin layer and covered it with old tarps they found in the building. After 2 long days of quiet digging under Germiston, the crew finally reached their target. They knew they were close when the sound of their tools changed. It was no longer just dirt. They had hit something hard. It was the thick concrete floor of the F&B vault. The tunnel was finished. They were now directly under the heart of the vault. The air inside the narrow tunnel was heavy. Everyone was tense. The digging was done, but the hardest and riskiest part of the job was just beginning. The crew's electronics expert moved forward to the tunnel's end. He slowly peeled back a layer of insulation to reach the wires hidden below the floor. These wires controlled the vault's security. He opened his laptop and took out a small, custom-made device covered in clips and blinking lights. He looked closely at each wire until he found the ones he needed. He connected a clip to the cable that controlled the security cameras. A live video of the empty vault appeared on his laptop screen. He chose a short, 4-second clip where nothing moved and no one was in view. Then he set that clip to repeat. From that moment, anyone watching the security cameras would see the same quiet image over and over. The bank was now blind. Next, he dealt with the alarm system. He didn't cut the wires. That would have set off an alarm right away. Instead, he carefully bypassed the sensors that watched the vault door. He made the system think the door was still closed and locked. The bank's security brain now believed everything was normal. The building could no longer hear or see what was really happening. The silence was complete. With the alarms shut off, it was time for the heavy work. One crew member slid a hydraulic jack into place and slowly began to push up against the vault floor. A piece of the concrete, already cut from below with a special wire saw, started to lift. It was massive, but it rose without making a sound. A dark, narrow hole opened up. One by one, the crew climbed through and dropped quietly into the vault. It smelled faintly like metal and old paper. Their headlamps lit up the rows of shining steel deposit boxes. But the real goal stood right in front of them. 2 large, heavy cash safes. These held the bank's main supply of money. They worked quickly and calmly. From their bags, they took out industrial grinders and thick, soundproof blankets. 2 crew members wrapped one safe tightly in the blankets, trying to trap the noise inside. Another put on safety gear and started cutting. The grinder made a loud, high-pitched noise, but it was...
Check, this guy is a really watched Money Heist. And most of this guy, bro, we have intelligent people in South Africa. We are doubting ourselves. I'm telling you, what they did is a crime, but I'm telling you, bro, come on now, Money Heist level in real life.
was mostly muffled by the blankets. Outside the vault, no one could hear it. Sparks flew as the spinning blade tore into the steel hinges. The smell of burning metal filled the air. It was hard work. The grinder glowed red hot as it chewed through the tough metal, but they didn't stop. At last, the first hinge gave way with a groan. They pried the heavy door open and froze for a moment. Inside were piles of South African rand, wrapped in neat stacks and paper bands. Green 100 rand notes, orange 200 rand notes, a fortune in clean, unmarked cash. But there was no time to stand and stare. They grabbed the money and packed it into strong duffel bags as fast as they could. They did the same thing with the second safe. fast, careful, and quiet. Then they turned to the deposit boxes on the walls. They didn't try to open everyone. There wasn't enough time. Instead, they picked a few and used a small, powerful drill to break the locks. They pulled out boxes, sorted through the contents, and kept only the most valuable items: jewelry, coins, bonds. Small things are worth a lot. They left behind anything too big or personal. When it was time to go, they were just as careful. They cleaned every surface they had touched, even though they wore gloves. They picked up all their tools, broken grinder discs, and bits of metal. Nothing was left behind except the broken safes and a few torn-up deposit boxes. One by one, they climbed back down through the hole in the vault floor. The last man gently lowered the concrete slab back into place. It landed with a soft thud. To anyone looking later, the floor would seem untouched unless they knew where to check. They moved back through the tunnel, dragging their gear with them. Once they reached the basement of the Ned Bank building, they sealed the tunnel entrance. They filled it with the same dirt they had removed and covered the top with dust and loose rubble. It looked like just another basement floor. With the loot in hand, they climbed back to the roof. They exited through the maintenance hatch and locked it from the outside. Then they disappeared into the city. They walked through quiet alleys before dawn, carrying bags full of money and treasures. They climbed into an ordinary van and drove off, blending into the light morning traffic as Germiston slowly woke up. They were gone. The vault was empty, and no one had seen a thing. Tuesday morning, April the 22nd, began like any normal workday. The long weekend was over, and the town of Germiston was slowly coming back to life. At the FNB branch on Victoria Street, the bank manager arrived on time, as always. He parked his car, greeted the security guard, and unlocked the front doors. Inside, everything looked just the way he had left it. The counters were neat, the posters were straight, and the bank felt calm and quiet. He followed his usual routine.
I'm telling you.
Usual routine, one he had done many times before. Soon, the head teller joined him. They were the only two people with the keys and codes needed to open the vault together. They walked to the giant steel vault door. The manager used his key. The teller turned the combination lock. Together, they turned the big handle. The vault made a deep clunking sound as the locks opened. Everything seemed normal. But as the heavy door swung open, they both felt something was wrong. The air smelled strange. It was a sharp, burnt smell like scorched metal. The manager turned on the lights. Then they stopped in shock. The vault wasn't empty, but something was clearly wrong. Most of the deposit boxes looked untouched, but two of them were open and their metal cases were lying on the floor. The real shock was what had happened to the two large cash safes. Their thick doors were torn apart. The hinges were damaged and the metal was burned and twisted. It looked like someone had used a powerful cutting tool. They stood frozen, trying to understand what they were seeing. This wasn't a messy break-in. There was no spray paint, no broken furniture, no trash. Everything else looked clean and undisturbed. There were no tools left behind, no footprints, no fingerprints. It was as if ghosts had quietly opened the safes and disappeared without leaving a single clue. The head teller covered her mouth in disbelief. The manager, pale and shaking, stepped out of the vault and took out his phone. He called the police. The bank had been robbed, and nobody had seen or heard a thing. Minutes later, police cars arrived outside the bank. Officers taped off the area and kept curious people away. The Germiston branch of the South African Police Service began their investigation. Detectives and forensic experts entered the bank dressed in full protective suits. They expected to find a normal crime scene. What they found was a mystery. Inside the vault, the lead detective, a man with 20 years of experience, stared in disbelief. He had seen many robberies, but never anything like this. Everything was too clean. There were no fingerprints, no hair, no signs of entry. It was like the thieves had never even been there. Whoever did this was not just smart. They were highly trained. The lack of evidence told him one thing clearly. This was done by professionals. The forensic team started working carefully. They took pictures of the damaged safes and looked for any clues they could find. Then, a young officer noticed something strange on the floor. There was a faint outline in the back corner, a square shape where the surface looked just a little different. He knelt down and found a tiny crack. The lead detective came over. They realized they were not looking at a regular floor. They were looking at a hidden cover. Using strong suction tools, they lifted the heavy square of concrete. It came up perfectly, revealing a dark hole beneath it. The smell of wet soil and burned metal rose from the tunnel. At last, they understood how the robbers got inside. They didn't come through the door, they came from underneath. Police went straight to the old Nedbank building next door. In the basement, they found the other end of the tunnel. The floor was disturbed and the tunnel was sealed. The building was empty and quiet, but now they knew it had been the secret base for the robbery. The crew had worked from there for days. The police now knew how the heist was done, but they still had no idea who had done it. The robbers had disappeared. No names, no faces, no evidence. Just an empty vault, a clean tunnel, and a perfect crime. It was as if the thieves had never existed at all. While the police were busy trying to find ghosts, a different kind of hunt began online. Social media exploded with theories, jokes, and wild guesses. The ghost crew had worked in total silence, but they hadn't planned for one loudmouth to ruin everything. Just a few days after the robbery shocked the country, a TikTok user named at mpisholo_95ks posted a video. The video
I said, man, if it's just you, bro. Nah, bro, it's always that one person, bro. Bro, if it's actually him, I'm telling you, Chad, he fumbled. I'm angry. That's a clean one. Nobody died. Nobody, bro, nobody just got there and took the money and left. And you decide to go to TikTok because you feel like you're rich. I was speaking for you, saying, why did I put you on a thumbnail? Maybe you might not be the person. Chat, let me.
wasn't very clear in total silence, but they hadn't planned for one loudmouth to ruin everything. Just a few days after the robbery shocked the country, a TikTok user named at mpisholo_95ks posted a video. The video wasn't very clear, but it was impossible to ignore. He proudly showed off huge piles of cash. Bundles of R100 and R200 notes were stacked on a bed, spread out in a car, and held up to the camera as he smiled and posed. He wasn't hiding anything, he was showing off, acting like someone who had just struck gold and couldn't wait to tell the world. The video went viral. South Africa was still buzzing about the daring bank robbery, and people quickly put two and two together. Here was a man showing off a suspicious amount of money right after a major heist. Online users jumped in with jokes, calling him suspect number one. Memes popped up, and the video spread everywhere with captions like, "We found him," and "There's always one guy who can't stay quiet." The irony was hard to ignore. While trained detectives were searching a spotless crime scene for tiny clues, the whole country was watching a man who looked like he was confessing on camera. His profile suggested he was a taxi driver or owner, which made the piles of money look even more suspicious. People flooded his comments with a mix of laughter, criticism, and disbelief. "Money doesn't like noise," one user wrote. Another said, "The rest of the crew is probably crying right now." Soon, rumors started to spread that he had been arrested. Social media lit up again, with people celebrating what they believed was a quick catch. But the police never confirmed anything. They didn't say if he had been arrested, questioned, or even involved at all. Some wondered if he was just a random guy who came into money legally and made a dumb choice. Others thought he might have been part of the crew, someone on the edge, who broke the biggest rule of all: stay quiet. There was even a theory that he was a planned distraction, meant to take the heat off the real robbers. No one could say for sure. What was clear, though, was that the noise he made sent the media and the public in the wrong direction. And while everyone stared at him, the real criminals had more time to disappear. The case is still open, but the trail has gone completely cold. No arrests, no new leads, nothing. The ghost crew seems to have pulled off the perfect crime. None of the stolen money has shown up. None of the stolen items have appeared in pawn shops or markets. It's like the crew vanished into thin air. People now talk about this heist the same way they talk about the old Krugersdorp Tunnel robbery of 1977. That crime also became famous, not just because of the money, but because of how cleanly it was done. These kinds of robberies feel bigger than just crime stories. They feel like myths. They show that even systems that seem strong can still be outsmarted.